All right.
What's up, man?
How you
You in
doing?
Chi-Town?
I'm in Chi-Town.
Nice, nice. When did you get there?
I got here Tuesday night, late Tuesday night. I had some business to finish in back in Charlotte, and then I've been here for meetings for the past 2 days.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's going well. Hopefully there's some good meetings and you're not just, being everything to everybody like you are to us. So hopefully you're just investing your time in very appropriate ways and doing the good stuff, man.
I'm a man of many hats, so
Oh, literally many hats. You guys catch your episodes. My brother's wearing multiple hats.
yeah. All right. So
What's up, Elijah?
we're on Instagram today, and before we kick off officially, fear we'll try to uh, just banter a little bit while we let people trickle in, and what we'll end up doing is uploading this to YouTube after we're done. And so the format's a little bit different today
Yeah.
because I am in Chicago. I don't have my normal equipment. I don't travel around much.
The podcast equipment.
I've never traveled having a podcast responsibilities, but we're still normal people at the end of the day. And it looks like we got Radical Roots on here. You were able to invite me. I wasn't able to go live myself because I think we have 30 days and we need 100 followers on Instagram. So we passed that 100 threshold. I think we have like 140 or so. So if you're listening right now or you're listening to the recording, please like, share, or follow. Share with at least 5 of your friends. We'd appreciate it. We want to grow this into a bigger movement. We want people watching. We want people listening, and see where we go from there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's always some newsiness going around, right? So even if we could always just banter and whatnot, but there's always something going on. Did you get a chance to catch any of the footage from Jimmy Carter's funeral today?
I didn't yet. I saw one clip, and of course, they're trying to get clicks, but
Mm-hmm.
I saw where Bush supposedly, passed by Trump and did not shake his hand. Now, I don't know. I take those clips with a grain of salt because any video can be framed to he might have shook his hand 5 minutes ago. You know what I'm saying? So I
True.
take those type of things with a grain of salt. But
I
yeah,
think
like what?
I think it helps reinforce the narrative. Like there's an old guard Republican and a new guard Republican. It's like ultimately they both have aligned interests. They may not interpersonally like each other. I think, and I say this a lot. Like I don't think Ted Cruz likes Donald Trump, but their interests are aligned, and that's the difference. And then there's a little bit of decorum in there and stuff like that. But I'm over respectability politics.
Yeah, I think there's a decorum definitely between Bush, Obama. I didn't see Biden in the mix, but of course Biden. We've seen that in the past, and Jimmy Carter in the past.
Clinton.
That regardless of Bush's politics, I mean, Bush is. You can say a lot about Bush, but I would vote for Bush over Trump. So
No
I don't
question.
think like if it
No
came down
question.
to it. But you see Bush tap Obama on the chest, like you know what I mean. So there's a relationship, and there's you think that these people would hold that hold this highest seat in the land would treat this position the way it should be treated. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. We have a completely different person, but
Yeah. I thought
um,
some of the it was. I mean, I didn't catch much of it. I was working today, but the pieces that I did catch when I was picking up my son and just hearing some of the stories that people were telling about Jimmy Carter and hearing Biden's. I got caught clips of his eulogy of Jimmy Carter, and it was very moving. One thing that Biden kept really hitting on was character. I think I saw a meme today, like they had the word character, but the only letters that were highlighted were CARTER, like Carter character.
yeah,
And I think that was it was very purposeful, right? Because I think Biden kept hitting that. Maybe in our short episode, we can get a piece of that clip from what Joe Biden was saying because I thought that was very impactful to me as someone as we try to contrast the incoming Trump with the outgoing Jimmy Carter current day Biden Harris administration. It's like the contrast couldn't be bigger. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Jimmy Carter, out of all the presidents, had the highest IQ out of all of our presidents.
I did
Yeah,
not know that.
highest IQ. I definitely would have thought that would have been Obama, but no, it is Jimmy Carter. I mean, he was a nuclear engineer or some sort of high level engineer. This is somebody that he kind of saw things before they happened, right? We talked about the solar panels that last episode, and then dumbass Ronald Reagan wanted to take them down. That he saw what was going to happen, right? And I think it's also very timely seeing that, what's going on in Los Angeles, California, and he had seen some of that. Like, hey, I don't think we don't need to also be beholden to big oil.
Right.
We shouldn't be, as a country, being led by our nose by this cartel. That's all OPEC is, just a cartel. But yeah, that story, and then his son spoke about I guess when he was young, he had failed a Latin test, and he was like, I didn't think there was a point of me really trying to learn Latin. A lot of folks weren't speaking it, but he had failed it, and they were on a Christmas vacation, and he told his father, he said, "Hey, Dad, I failed," and Jimmy was like, "All right, where's the book at?" Finds the book. Right, they're on Christmas vacation. The next day, Jimmy Carter starts studying it, and then is now quizzing his son, because overnight, he started learning it himself. And then when his son, after the whole Christmas break, his son went back to school. He asked the teacher, he said, "Hey, can I retake that test that I failed?" She said, "Yeah." And he got 100%. And as a father, as someone who earlier today was trying to get my son to understand how to do mixed fractions, and I forgot a little bit of that stuff, and I'm really trying to meet him in the middle, but also show him that I care, and also show him that you don't got to be perfect, and you don't got to know everything. Because he was in the car when we heard some of that, and he said, "I appreciate that, Dad," and I try to spend a lot of time with my son. And that a moment like that reminded me that we have work to do, and work don't stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for giving that story. And I have to check out the recording for sure. That's a giant. So before we get open officially, is you want to see if Andrew's available to hop on this?
Yeah, I can add him.
Let's see if he's available. If not, we'll get him in a few minutes.
Okay, I sent the invite. But yeah, no, so it's good. I think the other feedback was that of how Obama sat next to Trump, and they seemed to be a bit jovial and jokey, and people didn't like that. My personal opinion, no one has to walk on eggshells like Barack Obama. Barack Obama cannot be seen as the angry black man at any given time, and he understands that. It's not fair, it's not right, but I think there's a level of like, look, I don't want to be here next to this guy. In fact, Michelle wasn't there; she was up in the rafters. She was like, "Hey, I ain't gonna be here next to that fool," because it's an order of the presidents.
Yeah. The thing about about Trump is he's also easily manipulated. So, I do think that some people like Obama or whomever can show something that makes Trump think, hey, like I can, trust this guy a little bit or something. Now, to what degree? Who knows? But I do think that if I do think that some people are
overblowing it. Like, cause I think there's a level of like how dare you? Like, I mean, what do you expect Obama to do? Like, punch the guy in the face? Like, fuck you? Like, I mean, there's a level like, hey man, we're at a funeral.
Yeah,
like, this is not your time.
Yeah. So, anyways, he's easily manipulated. So who knows? You give him a compliment. Next thing you know, he's giving a secret.
Right.
So, anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and kick us off officially.
Okay.
So when we get this, we're gonna upload this to YouTube. Radical Roots Podcast. I'm Rom. I'm your
I
co-host,
am
one of your co-hosts,
Ron Baxter. I'm your other co-host,
and
and we'll bring in our third co-host later on this episode.
yeah,
But I
and we
appreciate
will
you making some time, Ron.
absolutely we dig deep to reach higher.
Reach higher, brother.
Yep,
You know what it is,
and progress through action. So,
right?
there's some breaking news that happened right before
Mm.
we hopped on,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't even get all the details
I
yet. So
think I
maybe
saw.
you can give me the
I
full
think I know what
detail.
you're talking about. But
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
So so we're gonna start nationally. I wanted to go different, but this came in
No,
right before. So the Supreme
I
Court,
saw that. I was like,
United States, United States Supreme Court. They basically have shot down Trump's last ditch effort to stop a
sentencing.
sentencing of his hush money case,
Election
right? So
interference.
uh,
Let's not diminish it. It was election interference. What he was doing. That was the whole point of it.
yes. So wow.
But
I don't think it.
also with a grain of salt, Judge Juan Merchan was like, "You're not going to face any jail time." So what is this, Rom? Is this just performance or what is it?
So here's what I think. I think yes. I don't think that there's going to be no penalty. That's what's been signaled by the judge. No monetary penalty. No, obviously no incarceration. No probation. So he gets a felony on his record. That's what's I think is going to happen. He'll enter office as the first felon in history. So nothing's really going to happen at the end of the day to Trump. It doesn't really matter. He ran primarily to stay out of jail, I
Absolutely.
believe. However, and I don't know what the ruling was if they just decided not to hear the case. This is what I don't have the details of. If they decided not to hear the case or if they actually voted. But he's not going to like that. Trump is not going to like the fact that the Supreme Court did not take up his case. Or again, I don't have that detail to take up whether they took up his case or voted it down. He's not going to like that. And to how he handles that, I don't know. But I'm not saying that signals the Supreme Court is going to do what's right. It looks like Andrew's ready. I'm not saying the Supreme Court is going to do what's over the next 2-4 years. But I guarantee you that Trump, and so the other thing that you might not have heard about yesterday morning, there was Trump had went and had a conversation, or his team had a conversation with one of the Supreme Court justices.
Yeah,
And this was leaked.
Just Alito.
Yeah. So this was leaked like right after it happened. Somebody wanted to put that out there, kind of, blow the whistle in a way.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. So either he knew that they weren't going to go in his favor, or, but either way, I
think
Trump is,
what this moment shows us is the naked corruption that has been normalized, excused, and explained away.
mhm.
We have a sitting Supreme Court justice who hung the American flag upside down outside of his house after January 6th to show solidarity with the people that I'm trying to get Andrew in here now to show solidarity with the people who smeared feces on the walls of the Capitol, to make common cause with the people that beat officers, to make common cause with the people that wanted to sexually assault Nancy Pelosi and AOC, to make common cause with the people that wore hoodies that said 6 million Jews wasn't enough, to make common cause with the people that sprayed bear spray on Officer Sicknick, causing him to have a seizure and stroke, then die, to make common cause with the people that took spears or used American flagpoles as spears to attack and maim. So that's the moment that we're in, and that's the guy that was talking to Trump.
Loaded to the YouTube, and like I said, I want to simulcast on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook in the future. We've been getting a lot of traction across the three platforms. A lot of views. Want to turn those views into likes. So if you're watching, like, share with a few of your friends, follow, subscribe on all our platforms. We'd appreciate it. But while we're talking about social media, another piece of breaking news: TikTok is, and maybe, and again, I've got off work and I saw TikTok is shutting down in the United States. Is that accurate? On
Mm.
January 19th.
That was the goal. I mean, that's what they were trying to
That
do.
is
I
that
mean,
is what it says. The headline is TikTok says it plans to shut down the site unless the Supreme Court strikes down or otherwise delays the US ban. So it's which is interesting because one of the places we've been getting a lot of traction, the most traction, is actually TikTok. So um, they say that it's owned by China. China's mining data. All these applications are mining our data. And so I don't think that there's particularly spyware, but I'm sure they're mining our data, and I'm sure they're trying to track whatever they can, our habits, but no more than an American company, no more
bingo.
than Facebook, no more than or Meta, or X. So it's just they're trying to.
They kind of monopolize our information, our data. And I think it's, and Noam Chomsky years ago said that America loves to project all of its fears and wants onto China. He said it maybe about 15 years ago. And he said every time America says something China's doing, they usually don't have any proof. It's all just xenophobic rhetoric. That kind of sounds right. It sounds true. And this is not me defending the Chinese at all. But what I do know is white men in suits lie to me a lot. White men in suits have lied to my grandparents a lot. White men in suits who have power, the media, power of the pen, laws, how I have access to education, lie to me a lot. They said that my history starts in slavery. So I'm cautious of people when they tell me who my enemy is, or they tell me who I need to look out for. As Nelson Mandela said in the late '80s, when they were talking about Palestine, specifically about Yasser Arafat, he said, other countries don't think that your enemies are my enemies, and it's very similar to us as Black people in damn near an occupied territory where we don't have any real agency. And I know Chinese people writ large, the Chinese government does not want to individually harm Peyron, Ram, and Andrew. They may want to bring down America. That's their problem with that. But I think about the people that are trying to hurt me. I said this the last episode: Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, Amy Coney Barrett, Donald Trump. Those are people right now that are embracing folks like Kyle Rittenhouse, Daniel Penny, Greg Abbott. All these people, they're actively harming people that look like us right now. So all I'm saying is we have to take with a grain of salt the fear mongering sometimes. And we can't forget that, as Audre Lorde said, that we are all citizens of the most powerful nation in the world. And that nation is on the wrong side of history wrong side of humanity at every single turn. So she said, and then the final line of that is sit with that.
Yeah, when you mentioned that on our last podcast, that's kind of sat with me, and I was thinking, actively affecting me, going after me as an individual and the people I care about, and the difference between that China or Russia wanting to bring down America, which is a very real threat.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things I saw this week was. In which I've so back in 2015, I was aware of Russian propaganda and what they were trying to do, which is what America's always kind of done. They've always put out propaganda and meddled into other country elections. So yeah, Russia was doing it to us, and they were doing it in a way of election interference. A lot of people think, oh, election interference, they were changing the votes on a ballot box, or something super nefarious. Well, no, it was how they were pushing out information to mislead Americans, right? Disinformation, which the people get this information and it's being fed to them. This algorithm we talk about. I'm gonna do my little weave right here, right? So you talk about this week. The other thing was Meta. Meta had basically said they stopped fact checking. They're not going to fact check.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Blah blah blah. Basically, he's bending the knee, and this is what I was talking about earlier. Like bending the knee to Trump. goes so far distant, like it goes such a long way for him because it strokes his ego. I think he's spineless. I still think Zuckerberg
I
is
mean,
spineless, whatever.
sorry, go ahead.
But, uh, but my point is that um, actually I lost my point. I was talking.
No, I was going to say this, and just because when I hear like, oh, they're bending the knee, I am so sick. In 2025, this year, can we finally stop saying that this person's this person's strong, and Jack Smith, Bob Mueller, like, look, dude, these rich
but
billionaires that don't got shit to lose are more afraid of Donald Trump, the Republican Party, than, and again, all of us are not in the billionaire class, so we'd be considered poor. All of us poors, they're like, fuck that.
yeah,
Like
but
I'm
yeah, they're
so
not
sick
standing
of
up for
it.
the people, having the expectation. But my point is like that truth check and stuff. It honestly doesn't matter whether there's fact checking or not because what matters is the algorithm. You could be fed if you're being fed uh, lies and like first off, I haven't seen truth community. I've seen lies being fed on X on Meta for months, and then they block some of the things that you and I post, right? So that algorithm, unless it's going somewhere, is already probably the biggest weapon that they have. And so my point is that Russia capitalized off of this and started in 2015. I was very aware early on, and probably even before that, but they took it to the next level. They did it this election. They did it in 2020. Um, and there's people, and I know people who I'm aware of people who they said, man, one of my friends was telling me about his friends and saying, man, they're talking about Russia and Ukraine, and all of a sudden and these are black men, and they're talking about Russia being the biggest threat and like all this stuff. And I was like, and some of the things they were saying, I was like, man, I haven't even heard that. Like, what do you like? Where's this coming from? And then I realized it's like they are knee deep in Russian propaganda. Like they're getting their lies from, and we're not talking about the things that are like affecting us, right, as Americans or Black Americans, um, Brown Americans. They're not talking about that. They're talking. They've managed to distract them to the point where they're talking about who invaded Ukraine and how it started, and all of these things, and it's like but like, how does that affect? Like, why is that your number one issue?
Because
And that,
the thing of I was, cults and cult behavior, authoritarian behavior always takes root when there's a problem. When you could always know a cult will always rise up, spring up. Jonestown, the Branch Davidians, MAGA. They're always amongst a group of people that are experiencing duress, stress, anxiety, fear, isolation. Folks that are inculcated and insulated from the outside world and information, and only being fed a steady diet of fear. Or there could be real trepidation, but then it's weaponized against other people to say, give your trust to me. So we just got to be understanding that what happens before the cult sets in is there's already seeded ground where people feel like, oh my God, I have no sense of identity. This group gives me a sense of identity. Right? I talk about identity politics. This group gives me a sense of identity. Therefore, I now feel accepted and I have a place in society. Even if it's a society I don't agree with everything, and then becomes the excuse roller coaster, the excuse, downhill slope. And that's where this stuff starts from. So as we talk about, the folks that are unable to see through that, these folks that they believe propaganda or that all they know is propaganda, that's a long history. The last episode I talked about the red summer of 1919. After that summer, 1920, folks like Paul Robeson went to Russia to fight for, or to actually become an emissary. Come to find out, they learned about communism, came back because what was Russia able to do? Talk about the conditions and experiences of Black people, and they said that's terrible. What's happening now? That's a long history of doing that to us here in this country. Because what they do is they point out, well, hey, you guys are getting a raw deal. You guys were enslaved. You guys are in Jim Crow at the time. And Paul Robeson's like, yeah, well, hey, we have communism here. We're not worried about capitalism. We're about folks that are all together. They share resources and own the means of production and blah, blah, blah. Some of it's true, some of it's not. A lot of it wasn't. But it sounded better than, you don't got to go back over there and go sit in the back of the bus. You don't got to go to the back of the restaurant. You don't got to worry about not getting that job. You don't got to worry about being poor, insolvent at every turn. That is how that starts to work. It's the enemy of my enemy is my friend tactic. So when you hear black brothers saying this, what they're saying is like, yeah, you know what? Putin may not be that bad. At least he ain't trying to kill me. We've heard that from who? Tucker Carlson. We heard that from folks like that. And that's how it works on folks who aren't as nuanced or as politically enlightened as we are. And that's where our position is here to step in and say, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, we have to keep our head on the swivel, because sometimes there are no allies. Sometimes there's just all enemies. And we got to be clear out about that.
Yeah. Another good example this week, where they're distracting, and it's cult like, it's very cult like, but all of a sudden we're talking about, and not we, but Trump, and now MAGA is now talking about Panama. They're talking about Greenland.
Yeah.
They're talking about Canada.
Right.
Have you, before, when we were in the election season, did you hear any of those three things come up? Was that a thing? Now, not only is Trump saying it, but like now the
That's a
whole back
Republican
is
thing.
like, we have to conquer Panama, we have to conquer Canada, we have to conquer Greenland in the name of security. So I'm trying to figure out right now if this is a distraction, but regardless, they're singing that. That's their whole. They got their marching orders. That's what they're focused on. But is it a distraction, or are they literally trying to conquer land, take it back to some manifest destiny?
Like Trump Jr. actually did a visit to Greenland already to meet with some people over there to try to get this
The
thing
case,
rolling of
the joint.
taking over Greenland. They're trying to say what actual ties to Greenland does Denmark actually have. So they're serious about acquiring it.
So when you,
I don't think they're serious about acquiring it. I think they're serious about it the same way, like they don't want us to be in society, right? Like they're serious that they don't want us to exist outside of like servitude. But will that happen? Will we allow that to happen? Absolutely not. Like if someone said, hey, Andrew, get about this house because you're black, you're like, man, go fly a kite, right? Right. We will fight back against that. So I think there's a level of like, it sounds good, but also it's a distraction that he can't do what? Bring down prices of eggs. He can't bring down the cost of healthcare. He can't bring down the cost of education. He can't give, it's a distraction because he cannot deliver. He
it's
can't
working.
deliver.
And it's already working. I mean, he's not in office, but I mean, there's so many things that he's talked about on the campaign trail, and he even talks about now, and and he has no plan to do so. He just said, he talks about how Biden and Harris are terrible, that they did so much bad, and they're giving him a bad deal and leaving him with bad.
I mean,
Well, what's your plan?
but this is why like we're at a point where it's like, it's not. I think the first Trump term, all of us were like super, dialed into everything that he did. That Trump said this and Trump said that. Can you believe that? That's at this point in time, America has exposed to us. This is what it wants. This is what it wants. It doesn't mean we want that as Americans, but the overwhelming majority, I'll say it every single time, the overwhelming majority of white voters chose this. 71% of the entire electorate, 57% of those people chose that. More than us, Latinos, whoever put together and add to. So they chose this. Also on our side, we did not inspire folks to come out. So I look at it and I just want to take a second to say, it's important to say we can only control what we can control, which is we don't have to swing at every pitch. We don't have to respond to every headline. We don't have to refute every lie. What we have to do, though, is tell the truth and move on. Because what they want is the back and forth, right?
Yeah, and we talked about leading up to us creating this podcast. Like, we don't want to follow everything Trump says and chase after everything he says, but I do think it is very important to highlight the tactics that he's using, and the way that information and the way that people are being distracted.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to do that now. Like I said last week, this is the calm before the storm. This week is the storm is starting. Like this is a variety. It's psychological warfare in a way, of the way that shock and awe, and they want to. And we got about 2 weeks left before things get real. So another thing that's happened this week. It's been an eventful week. The wildfires in California, which
Right.
are devastating. They're extremely sad because people, 10,000s or thousands of homes gone, and 100-mile-per-hour winds. These blowing these fires. Who could keep? I mean, 100-mile-per-hour winds sounds crazy to me with a
In
fire
January.
in January. It's not even fire season, and this is something we've seen before. California's used to it in a way. Not that the way that they've seen it, I think, spread so fast. But one of the biggest wildfires recently was during Trump's last term, in which before he gave aid to California, Newsom, he was withholding it, and basically thinking that it's a Democrat uh, state, so he was not going to assist them. He was going to hold it back until, and then his staff, his cabinet, had to basically show him data that MAGA or whatever Republicans live in the affected areas before he would actually. So that's what happened last time.
Yeah.
This time, he's on the news blaming Gavin Newsom, or he calls new scum. He's calling
New
him
scum.
names.
Gotta call him new scum. He's the
And
scummiest.
he's talking about how water's been rerouted to help smelt and fish, and this man is it's
He's sundowning. He's sundowning. This man is losing his marbles. They've been lost.
and here we are in the middle of a tragedy, and a serious thing. Like, some stop playing politics.
But this is political, man.
It
You know.
is political, but yeah,
But
I
people,
mean,
I get what you're saying. We're like people are they're losing everything,
like a
and they don't need to
spectacle.
be told blame that person over there. It's like, look, dude, you help me, like round up some choppers, get some water out
You
here.
know,
But to say blame these people, that's what Trump's big on right now, and blaming Gavin Newsom and all. It's like, come on, man.
so
But again,
I
that's what
do.
they want.
I do incident response in the context of cybersecurity, and so we respond to a company getting hacked, and I've been IT, something's down. As a leader, you're working to solve it. You're working to figure out what caused it. You're not pointing fingers in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of an incident, right? It serves no one, right? It doesn't actually help resolve anything any faster. You resolve the issue, you get it contained, and then you work to find the root cause. And even if your team, you don't point fingers and say your fault, your fault. You work to find the root cause and say, like, okay, well, yeah, sometimes there is fault, but, like, okay, what could we have done better? What should we have done? What is truly a fault? You can't do that in the middle of. You can't do that as this is unfolding. So this man's not serious.
No.
And yeah, and here we are again. We got 4 years of this shit. So, yeah.
Now,
Um,
Andrew, I mean, I know you teed it up earlier as we were talking and sharing some of this. What are your thoughts about how it's been framed, and some of the backlash? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
I think Trump has been ready to come at Gavin Newsom. I think they just opened it up for him to be able to do that because they've been going at it on X and in the media. So now this gives him something to try to throw Gavin off and put blame on Gavin. Trump did a lot of campaigning in California during lead up to the election. So he's been out there, growing his base out there, and now that he has this fire, his full steam ahead, it's time to take out Gavin. He's already called Gavin to resign and step down. He's calling for the mayor of LA to step down. They're coming at the fire chief being a DEI hire. The DEI is always
Lord.
under attack. Always this is always under attack. As long as it's not a white man head of the job, it has to be a DEI hire. It can't just be somebody that's worked their way up. Even though you see their track record of them putting in the work over time, they have to be a DEI hire because they're not a white man.
yeah. Yeah, that Jesse Waters was a clip from Fox News, and he's showing the leadership of the L.A. Fire Department, and it's 3 or 4 women, and he's like, "I hope they're qualified." Like that was his reaction on air,
Right.
uh, solely because they're women. This is misogyny and racism is like the cornerstone of MAGA. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so like for okay, so we look at a majority of white men voted for Trump. Majority of white women voted for Trump. White men, look, they're the ones that are going to benefit the most. I'm not saying that they're in the right. I'm not saying that.
Right. I get what
However,
you mean.
however, white women serve. They will not. There's nothing that they're going to get out of this presidency that benefits them whatsoever. Like I don't know the percentages, but even in the representation of women within Congress, it's somewhere between, it's like 14%, like
Yeah,
within.
right. Overall, but it's even worse in the GOP. It's even like the GOP is predominantly a white man's party.
Mhm.
Like I'm talking about like Congress. I'm not talking about voters. But even more so there. But I don't know, man. Like over years and after all the study I do and research on folks that study this stuff, and at a certain point, all the different authors and scientists that study sociological change and race and they all start saying the same thing after a while. Like it's funny, my wife tells me like, "Oh, Liz, what this book about race?" She said, "Perry, you don't." She read it. She might have read it before me. She's like, "You don't really got to read that book because you've read that book in 19 other different books." So I
Yeah.
get to a point where I'm like, we got to stop saying like white women are butting against our interests. I don't think they are. What if your interest is white supremacy? What if your interest is to be the dutiful wife?
I,
What if your interest is to go back to the movie The Help and you just want to live in your prissy little world and the black woman you don't look at, you look at them like furniture and you just get to go bowling with Suzanne? And how do you know that isn't the goal?
oh, first, I absolutely is for some, for many, even especially in
For many at this point,
Union County. Uh,
absolutely.
but there are some that feel like there's, I don't know, like he's gonna he's gonna help them out. But yeah, I get what you're saying. If you're watching, listening, please like, share, follow. If you share with 5 of your
Right.
friends on any platform, subscribe, all of that. So, should we? I'm take it to North Carolina. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Just bring it back home.
All right. So this is what I wanted to talk about first, but there's been
Yeah.
so there's been so much going on in the last hour, the last 7
Yeah.
hours this week, and it's impossible to keep up with. So I will tell you, like, let me start by saying there's a few sources I follow here in North Carolina, or who I like to follow, also social media personalities. So one is Carolina Forward. They're on top of things. The other is Hometown Holler. And then there's a publication called The Assembly. And The
Oh no.
Assembly is a little bit more investigative,
Mm.
not necessarily the day-to-day news, but they're digging deep, you know what I mean?
In
And
like
they
in
have,
like the General Assembly or just in general.
it's called, the publication is called The Assembly. And it's definitely worth checking out. So just wanted to share that. I don't know if you guys have any you want to share before I jump into the story.
Locally, you said Carolina Forward. Uh, yeah, I mean Carolina Forward. What's the other one? God,
Is it,
if it comes to me, but yeah, Carolina Forward is great. Cardinal and Pine. Cardinal and Pine is good. That's the other one.
okay.
They're North Carolina based. Cardinal and Pine, um, based on the state bird, state tree. Um, but no,
And there's a,
Carolina Forward actually. The guy that does the videos, I forget his name's Joel, I think, or Blair. Blair.
mm,
Uh, he reached out to me. He wanted to chat before the holidays, but things fall apart. But no, it's important that people find people who are on the ground that are actively trying to inform them and not spin them. That people that want to keep stuff short. I know I've told you guys I want to keep my part shorter because we want to get to stuff in clippable, short, consumable moments where people can just take it in their ear and be like, oh, you know what? I didn't think of it that way. But as we're coming back home with the news, um, yeah, it is turbulent times in the old North State.
yeah. and just real quick, what I want, we're hyper aware. Even the people that follow those sources are more aware than most people in North Carolina. So when you hear the news and when you hear us saying something, it's important that you go take that home, take that to your friends, take that to your family, take it to your office, and spread it. Because if
Yeah,
they're not hearing it from the people around them, they're either hearing nothing or
right.
they're hearing some other warped version. And so, you have to realize that a lot of people they're not tuned in. They just, whether they don't care or they don't have the time or they're just not as interested, they'll go and vote. But they they don't really pay attention till it's election season. Now it's more critical than ever. So one of the biggest piece of news this week in North Carolina is that the North Carolina Supreme Court justice seat is still not certified. Justice Allison Riggs, she won by about 700 votes. They did two recounts. She still had that 700 vote lead, in which her competitor, Jefferson Griffin, has pulled out all the stops. He sued every single county. He's basically resorted to identifying 60,000 people who didn't have social security number or a driver's license number on their application or registration, or there was clerical. We really don't know what the issue was, but that's what he's saying. It could have been a clerical issue. They could have been registered for many years. I saw somebody who's registered since 2005. Um, uh, uh, Riggs, her own parents, are in this list of 60,000. Uh, some of the most politically active people in North Carolina are on this list, and they're basically trying to say that they didn't want to vote. So they're trying to do this after the fact, and just for this one race. And it went up to the federal court, and the federal court appeal judge basically shot it back to North Carolina and said, this is a state issue, which means that the Supreme Court that Riggs sits on for the same seat she sits on today is the one that decides, potentially, will decide the fate of this seat. So it's a 5-1, well, 5-2, but she has recused herself. Republican Supreme Court in North Carolina, which means that Republicans can basically invalidate 60,000 votes and for basically install this Republican into the seat to make it a 6-1 majority, which would be devastating. And it would not have it would have implications in North Carolina, but nationally, this would be the blueprint for other states to do the exact same thing. They will find any kind of loophole, and if it goes back to a Supreme Court that's in favor of Republicans, they're basically going to take power by force. They're going to take power by ignoring the law. They will do it by any means necessary, and it will be a dangerous precedent. So, what do you
I
guys think
agree.
about that?
No,
Like, I
no,
mean,
I'm with you, man. It's I know. Like I look at it like, again, when you know history, it's kind of hard to be shocked about the present. And I just don't remember a time where people that believe in a hierarchy of humanity and who were previously in power just willfully gave away their power. It's never happened. Every civil war in human history always was started by the more powerful side as they were losing power. Every infighting was always some sort of like tango with the powerful with the consent of the governed. And that's what we are. We said we voted for Allison Riggs, and they're like, nah, because they're not. And I try to remind folks, the Republican Party is not a political party. I call them the Republican organization. They're a dime store front for a violent white Christian nationalist movement. We have to get that through our heads. I know it's hard to get through our heads because we know Republicans, especially palm-colored Democrats, it's very easy to be like, oh no, Jimmy, Tommy, Frankie, Susie, Heather Ann are good. But what we're saying is they don't see us as human, which means that we are inherently invalid our votes are inherently invalid. This is the whole big lie of 2020. Trump saying, "Oh, the election was stolen, invalid votes." He meant we were voting. He meant people that did not want to align themselves with white nationalism, white Christian nationalism, violence, lies, duplicitousness, all that stuff. We were the problem. And that's what's happening now. And I try to remind folks after 2020, what happened in Florida, where they, I don't know if you guys remember, where Ron DeSantis pulled off a district attorney who was elected properly, fired him, right? Janet Protasewicz, who was a Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin, right? They were trying to overturn her win. The insurrection on January 6, 2021 is continuing on years after that in different ways, right? Shooting up the Democratic Party in Arizona. Here with this power grab. This is still the insurrection. It's a low boil insurrection. But if we don't understand that, we're going to try to make common cause with the people who are saying that we are invalid citizens and therefore should not have human rights, respect, or integrity.
Yeah, and to me, it's escalating. It's boiling, and it's going to boil over like every time. So, before you mentioned Florida, I forgot about DeSantis and what he did there. But Bush Gore, right? So in my lifetime, and I was let's see, Bush Gore was 2000, so I was like 14.
Yep.
But I think if I was my age, like with older in 2000 and had awareness of like the implications and what they actually did, I mean, they literally stole they stole the presidency through the Supreme Court that happened to be Republican majority,
Right.
and so yeah, we have been there before, which in a way kind of gives me some uh, maybe false sense of comfort. Like, damn, we will get out of this because we've been through it before. And like you said, you go back to history, but damn, I do think that I think they're brazen. They're a lot more brazen in 2025. And if this works, it will be dangerous for democracy in general, both in North Carolina and across the nation. And whether it's a 4-3, whatever, Supreme Court, I would rather see something that's balanced.
More
If
balanced.
something is 6-1, 7-0, that's a problem in itself. That doesn't represent the people. And even with a 5-2 Supreme Court in North Carolina, the chances of the possibility of that even going back to an even number is 2032. So we're talking about 7 years, 7-8 years before
I'll be
before
45 years old.
and so it's just not good.
This is why I get so irritated. I want to kick it to Andrew to get his thoughts on this. I get irritated with this because we don't have time. I said it last time. We literally don't have time as Black people. Just inherently, by living in this society that shortens our life, that allows us to be to be exposed to carcinogens, that we don't get the right medical care, we don't get the right education, not because of anything we're doing, because we're not invested in. We get over surveilled by police. We get over incarcerated. We're the most exonerated. Like it just, we don't have time. And people keep wanting to tell me about the benevolence of some random ass Republican in their life. And what I'm telling these people is that these people are willing to give over their power to someone like a Griffith to take our rights away. And if they are unable to understand that, then you are also my enemy. If you are running cover for my enemy who wants to kill me and my children, you are my enemy. And that is the reality for us to survive. And when I see this judicial coup, that's what this is. It's called judicial capture. I don't think that people that are really animated about it on social media are actively understanding how it interplays with their lives every single day. And when we are sitting here trying to use the same legal system that was able to say that we weren't people or that we aren't full citizens and can be thrown away because we have a felon coming into the White House. So what is law? It becomes more of a frustration because, again, the system was never meant for us. It was never conceived with us in mind beyond 3/5 of a human being. And I know that that's hard for a lot of people to understand. It's like, well, no, just use this and say that. But it's like, at the end of the day, like, these laws were not for us. And it's infuriating. It is infuriating. It is insulting. It spits on the legacy of our revolutionaries that have died to actually make this country be worth a damn. We don't have time. We don't have time for people to get it. We're telling you, we've done we live it. We know we're the first ones impacted when white America catches a cold or America catches a cold. Black folks catch the flu is what they say. But Andrew, your thoughts, brother,
Yeah,
on
like you
this
said, we
judicial coup?
don't have time. Like this is just modern day Jim Crow all over again. You know, trying to restrict our access to the ballot box. Even before the election started, they tried to remove 225,000 people from the voting roll purges. You know, NAACP spoke out against that. You know, just more just modern day Jim Crow, all the voter ID laws, everything's trying to limit black access to voting, the closing voting.
I mean, even in this past week, they've Republicans have introduced bills to reverse the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, right?
Right.
The Voting Rights Act of what is it, 1940? When was the voting rights?
1965.
1960. I mean, they're looking to take us
And
back.
again,
So one of our viewers just talked about HR Resolution 7, which is taking basically removing healthcare for women. At the end of the day, reducing the access to healthcare for women. I mean,
this
these are things that I don't.
all, this is all, and I got to go back because what it all is the white replacement theory. Black voting rights, anti-trans bills, anti-Roe versus Wade, all of this, the border stuff, all of this, Trump, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, David Sachs, folks that grew up in apartheid South Africa or in Germany that has the legacy of things like Holocausts and other segregations that were learned and informed through American law. It's like this is the end game of the white replacement theory. And when we start trying to parcel off, like, well, it's not that, it's the immigrant, and I'll do my thing again, but like that's what this whole thing is. And once you can accept that, it doesn't mean you did it, but once you can accept that, that's what they're doing. You're done with the excuses. You're done with like, well, no, it can't be. Yes, it is. That's why I tie what happened with Deb Fisher's husband not wanting to shake Kamala Harris's hand. It's the same thing when I forget the guy's name from South Carolina that stood up during when Barack Obama was doing his State of the Union speech and said, "You lie."
Yep.
If they can take a swipe at a black person, specifically a black woman, to show their white male dominance, no matter your power, your privilege, your prestige. That's what this moment is. But we're like, no, it's can't. And I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up, please. Just go sit over there. If you don't know, you don't understand, you don't live it, you don't study it, you don't get it on the granular level, you got to go shut the fuck up, because people will die. People will die. People will be destitute. And if all you have is just toxic positivity or just being unwilling to understand these intricate systems that we're trying to explain to you, again, I try to post a lot of black women that talk about what's going on, because again, you've never just found a group of black women or black men for that meaning, for that instance, that have ever just came to a microphone and they just started lying about America. Like, you just haven't seen that. Like, hey, you know what? This slavery stuff sucks, or the Jim Crow is bad, or we're truth tellers because we can't do nothing else but tell the truth. We couldn't believe the myths of this country because we had to bear the brunt of it. So when we're talking about what Judge Griffin's doing, it's like, yeah, this is the same old dissolution of the Fusion Party in Wilmington, North Carolina. This is the same old, Red Summer of 1919. This is the same old here in Charlotte, North Carolina, when they burned down Brooklyn Heights and turned that into modern day Charlotte, North Carolina. Like, this is a long history of that shit, and we're sick of it. Because we don't have the time. Literally, our telomeres in our DNA are getting shorter. Like we're not going to live as long, so we don't have time to continually try to explain away what is happening, because that is what's happening. And what we need is people who have that proximity to them to exert pressure, not try to be their friends, not try to just, well, not this one. It's like, yes, it doesn't mean you got to punch them or yell at them, but you got to say, hey, you are supporting a fascist. You're supporting a movement that is against my fellow human brethren, my fellow human sisters out there, because we're all one race. But if you believe there's a hierarchy in the race, you'll approximate yourself to that hierarchy. So that's a long way of saying this is all the white replacement theory. Again, the GOP is a dime store front for a violent white Christian nationalist movement. And if we choose to not understand it after January 6th, 2025, and saw all them high-fiving and all, look, be ignorant at your own peril. But the truth tellers have told you the truth at this point.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Andrew.
And I
I was gonna say, like, I mean, I'm thinking, like, how do we awaken the consciousness of the people? And I think us as three black men, I think there's an audience. I think the audience that we'll resonate with are, again, the people who are paying attention, the Democrats who are paying attention. We're not gonna get MAGA Matt watching our show, like enlightening him. He's not a light bulb's not going to go off by what we're saying, but the things that we're saying here, there's people that look like us that can relate, and hopefully that listen. There's Democrats that are listening, but like I said, I always say, I don't have friends and family like that are MAGA. Like I mean, I could have a conversation,
Right.
and I might have a conversation, run into somebody, and be able to have a conversation. But a lot of these people are there. Hear so many people, my family, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and I do. There's people that are some people that are like, yeah, I'm gonna say something, and I'm gonna speak up, and I'm not gonna let you be a bigot around me, or I'm not, and there's some people that are just like, I want to avoid conflict. And I mean, look, I avoid conflict because conflict gets me in trouble sometimes. But like, I'm like at a point where like you have to be able to start having these conversations
Right.
with the people in your circle.
Correct.
And because again, it's cult-like behavior.
Right.
It's almost like an intervention,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you have to understand in my mind, the best way to is you have to help them understand like how cults operate, and like how this propaganda and how you're feeding. Like just think about the past. Just think about if you're a Republican or MAGA or whatever you are, and all of a sudden you're talking about Panama and Greenland and Canada. For what? Like, what do we gain? What do we as Americans gain out of it? What do you as an individual gain out of any of those
Well,
things? Like, we weren't talking about any of those things.
what we're witnessing is we are swept up in their delusion. That's what it is. And because you're a clear-eyed person, Andrew's a clear-eyed person, I'm a clear-eyed person. A lot of our viewers are clear-eyed people. People that would follow us and will follow us are clear-eyed people. They want to be able, when they talk about freedom of speech, right now, we're going to get into the meta stuff later, but this whole censorship and freedom of speech, they want the freedom to strip your rights away, to discriminate, to harm, jail, kill unjustly you, your people, and whoever's against them. And they want to still be accepted in polite society. The one thing a bigot always hates is being called a bigot. That's the number. A racist hates being called a racist. If a MAGA person came to me, in fact, it happened today. So a guy on my Instagram was like, "Oh, you're the racist." I'm like, "What institutional powers do I hold?
Yeah.
What systemic powers do I hold?" I said, "What did I say that was right?" And of course, anyway, point is, it's the same thing here. We're like, there's a proximity to power we need people to try to exercise to get us all free. Because if I'm not free, Mr. Person trying to tell me about this fantastic Republican who I don't know, the Griffin stuff's not too bad, and I don't know, did he win? Listen, we're in that moment. Like whatever the moment, whatever what I would have done in the 1930s in Germany, what I would have done during the Jim Crow, it's this. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're saying, whatever you're believing, whatever the hard work you're doing, is whatever you're doing right now. And that's what I'm trying to tell people. Earlier today, I had someone try to tell me about it. A black woman talking about how we need to get folks together. And she was talking about white women. And the lady was like, how dare you? How dare you say, I didn't vote for Kamala Harris. I voted for Kamala Harris. I'm like, this is the issue. Because if you don't tell anybody about your illness, it's impossible to ever get cured. It's an Ethiopian proverb. And that's where we're at. Folks, they're more dedicated to politeness than they are to justice. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't care. All this, don't speak like that. Joe Biden has to take the high road. They are out here hugging Kyle Rittenhouse and Daniel Penny.
Yeah, the high road is gone. That ship has sailed. I saw a Democrat post. They're like, I looked into the Jefferson Griffin, and election integrity matters. And I'm like,
The very first voter ID law. I don't know if I said it to y'all. Do y'all know when it was passed?
voter the first one. No, I don't know the first
Take a
one.
wild guess. Andrew.
Well, 2014.
2000. Voter ID. So we've been voting 2000. What you think?
I thought it was 2014, but
well, it's closer. It's closer. It's 2009 in Arizona.
Okay.
So this whole like, oh, we got to do this. It's got to happen. If not, then do we even want democracy? We haven't been a democracy. People talk about we got to save our democracy. We've been trying to pull it to make it a democracy. If we can't have people voting, we don't get a national holiday. We don't allow felons to vote. There's all sort of extra chicanery about how you got to vote. That's not a democracy. And then what happens is that their most dyed-in-the-wool base shows up, who wants all the most crazy, insane things, and things like the primary process, the gerrymandering, voter restriction, voter suppression. It all works together like a net. And then they say, look, we won. We're the best. And it's like, no, that's not how it, I mean, yeah, people believe that. They'll say, well, they won the election. But yeah, they won the election with a electoral system that was meant to give basically DEI to non-populous white states and areas that have a more significant white base, and then they give them what they want. And they don't even give it to them; they just tell them what they want to hear. They like think about all these Trump voters that went from eggs and gas prices, and now they're like, yeah, Greenland, right? To your point, Ron. Like, what do they want from the government? And I always try to tell people, if you don't have any demands, if you have no demands, what the fuck are you talking about?
That's the thing. It's like, we want government it's like doing something for the people, for your neighbor, or do you just want to invade countries, spend billions of dollars into our military? Is what I don't know the exact percentage of our budget goes into the military, but why would you want that over something that healthcare, something that benefits you? Why does it bother you so much that somebody might benefit, your neighbor might benefit from I don't know, give me an example.
Healthcare, internet, whatever.
Yeah,
No, you're right, because it's not about do I get something. When you're whipped up on a stick, think about how long we've been dealing with Donald Trump now. It's been, as June of this year will be
10 years.
a full decade when he came down the escalator.
Mm-hmm.
A full decade. Now, beyond that, we can go back to The Apprentice and what he was doing there. We go back to Grandmother Pussy. We can go back to Central Park. All of that. Right? So he's been in the political sphere for a while, right? But it comes down to how much this stuff has normalized in our society, right? Like when he came down the escalator, he was like, oh, it's crazy. And it was still on the fringe. But now we have so many people that have excused 2017, excused 2018, excused 2019, excused 2020, 2021, all of those bullshit he says in the shithole countries and the throwing the paper towels and the grabbing by the foot. After a while, after you start excusing everything, you have nothing left. And I think I said a few episodes ago that Nietzsche quote, that be careful of staring into the abyss, because eventually the abyss will stare into you. And all these folks after 10 years, they're just a hollowed out husk. They don't even know what they want anymore. What they do want is you to be hurt. That's it. And if they can guarantee that they'll hurt you, I'm talking about y'all black asses and whoever else is watching that is not on the MAGA train, that's good enough for them. They will die hungry, sick, full of cancer. That's what they will do.
Yep.
And a book I read a couple years ago called "Dying of Whiteness" by Jonathan Metzl. He breaks it down. His opening chapter. He's in Tennessee. He's talking to a guy named Trevor. He has an oxygen thing around his breathing tube, and he says, "Trevor, wouldn't you like to have access to healthcare?" He says, no, I don't want no government handouts. This is before Obamacare. I don't want or Affordable Care Act. I don't want no handouts. And also, and this is the important part. And also, I don't want to pay for no Mexican.
Yeah, and you know,
That's
and you know they got the and it's like, and that's they got the little man that's like all of like that's like PPI. You know who when PPI during COVID when that came out, you know who was on top of that. You know who takes handouts. You know who takes advantage of every single loophole.
Elon Musk.
Rich people. Any tax loophole, they're going to take advantage of it, and they're not going to think, oh, I'm going to do the right thing. No, that's a loophole that they're going to take advantage of. PPI, they were in line. You know who was able to take advantage of PPI? The most savvy, business savvy people, the people who were running the biggest companies already, and they were on top of it. They were the first ones in line taking advantage. While everyone else, the small businesses that were hurting the most, they were the last ones in it because they weren't really sure how to navigate it. They're taking handouts. They're taking the tax cuts. There's no shame in what they're doing.
It's handouts. It's well, they don't call that handouts. They call that government assistance, or they call that investment. For you, it's a handout. You're
investment. They're calling it investment.
Investments,
they're calling it investment.
Strategic, financial. They got all this bullshit, right? But it's what it is. It's our tax dollars going to go fund Elon and Jeff Bezos' penis rocket. That's what we're funding. We're funding, these pet projects for these fucking, sad, lonely loser boys like Elon Musk. And the thing is, we're watching plutocracy. We're a plutocrat, someone that uses their wealth and power to control the government with their largesse. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And Trump is being led by the nose. And the Republican Party has always been for the corporatocracy. It's always because Republicanism has always been about three things: libertarianism, corporatism, and nativism. Libertarianism, that's stand up, no one needs to deal with me. I'm by myself. I'm in the wilderness, right? But corporatism, that's the greed, right? Ronald Reagan, right? This is when he went from. He had Jimmy Carter, who just passed. We're talking about his funeral earlier today. He went from going from a politic that what Jesus would have wanted for more people, right, to give to people, to this more specific corporatized bootstraps, neoliberal bent for the country under Ronald Reagan, right? And so that's your corporatism, right? That's Elon Musk represents that. Then the nativism, that's your hatred. That's your hatred. We have whipped up, we have conditioned these people to hate enough, whichever group it is, women, people of color, LGBTQ folks, immigrants, we don't care. That is the braid that is working right now. So when people are saying, oh, get you guys, the left needs its own Joe Rogan. No, because what does Joe Rogan do? What? That's crazy. What? No nuance. He's not asking questions. He's not saying that's a lie. Hold on, wait. What? Tell me more. Wait, you're telling me that they stole the election, Trump? Whoa. We can't. Would you go on that? Would you watch that shit? No.
I can't watch. I can't watch a lot of these. I can't watch. That's why I'm like, I can't watch a lot of these podcasts. Like these people, it's
they're just feeding them what they want to hear, and that's the problem.
It's playing dumb is what it is. Playing this character. They have an agenda, and they kind of play dumb. And
but at this point, I don't know who's the true believers, who's the actor. I don't know.
I don't know either.
And I'll finish this with this about like when we're talking about going into dangerous places and asking people to be our quote unquote, our allies or advocates, whatever word you want to use. I was at the Union County Pride event over the summer, And this story, I told the story to people, and they're like, "Oh wow, yeah, that's why I see why people of color act that way. I see why." And you know, here, I mean, we're here in Union. It's a red county, and there's a bunch of fucking crazy bigots that are always walking with the signs and all the blah blah blah. And I'm at the booth, and I'm sitting there, I'm chilling, and talking, blah blah. And there's one guy who is the husband of one of the Democratic Party members here. And this guy, he's a pistol. Okay, he don't take shit from nobody. He's all he. In fact, he shows up to get into shit with people, right? And I love it. Like, every like
I gotta
with the
meet this guy.
magnets, like I love him. Every time he's a white guy, right? And he tells, "Hey, Ron, you know, I'm from that, folks. I used to be a Republican. I grew up with all these racist motherfuckers." He's like, he gets into it, and I'm like, yeah. Tell me more, yeah, right? Like my favorite kind of white. So, so they're getting into it. So you know, these folks come around, and I'm just chilling. I'm like, whatever, because it was a great hot Saturday. You know, y'all could be anywhere else, but you're here trying to protest people exercising their First Amendment right to freedom of assembly, whatever. So I'm sitting there, and there was this one lady who kept and he kept like getting people out, like, "Get this guy, I know you, John, I know you, James, blah, blah, blah." And this one lady came up behind him, and another gentleman looked behind him because he didn't see her behind him, the guy I'm talking about. And he said, "Hey, get her out of here. She's one of them. She's a part of the bigots." And he turns to her, and she's like, "No, my daughter is LGBTQ." She says like that, and I'm like, "Well, which one is it? Like which other, like, what are you saying? Like, what are you saying?"
Yeah,
Um,
right.
and I will never forget this moment. He turns to her, he turns back to the guys. The guy's like, "No, she's not one of us." And she's like, "I am one of you." And he looks at her. He's like over his shoulder. He's like, "Are you with us or are you with them? If you don't know who the good white ones are, how in the
Are
hell
we
are
supposed
we
to know?
supposed to know?" I will never forget that moment. So don't lump us all in the grip. Y'all don't know who the good ones are, and you want me to be like, "Oh no, I know Timmy's a good one." Look, all we can do is judge you based on of your actions, your deeds, and what you're willing to say and defend and protect. That's it. That's it. Because folks who are more vulnerable and susceptible to violence, and if you're not defending us, you are against us. There is no neutrality when it comes to human rights. And I just remember that moment because there's so frequently we're told that we don't know what we're talking about, that we don't get it. But then our whole life is political. Everything we do, no matter what we do, showing up anywhere in these
Yep.
spaces is a political act of defying.
If this works,